Hi, it's Jess, and welcome to the first video episode of the Flaky Foodie podcast. The Flaky Foodie podcast is the only show where the discussion is delicious and there's chatter to chew on. Now, this is just half an episode. The rest of the episode can be found wherever you listen to audio podcasts, be it Apple, Spotify, Google Play, or what have you. This is just a video review of wrong side of the Wakanda Cookbook. And wow, it looks amazing in this light. You can actually see it, but it's amazing. And this, if you look up impulse buy in the dictionary, there will be a picture of me holding up this cookbook. As soon as I found out that it was even available, I immediately went to Amazon and purchased it. So I got this immediately. Like, I think all I saw was a picture. It wasn't even an article. And as soon as I posted it, this account that I follow, this fellow podcast that I follow on Twitter, Soul Foodie with a PH instead of a FOODIE, posted an article that said more about this cookbook, which I was happy to read because I was going in fully blind, not knowing anything about it. Just know that we are a huge Marvel family. We watched all the Disney Plus shows, all the movies. My husband is super into comic books. And we actually went to go see Black Panther, the movie, in theaters, matching Black Panther shirts. I was probably about 7 months pregnant. And we sat down and really enjoyed the film. And one of my son's first little onesie numbers that I bought was actually a Black Panther onesie. And so I saw this. I was like, Black Panther? I'm a food podcast. I'm a foodie. I am going to get this thing. And so the article that I read about this book was saying that it was actually by an African author because, of course, Wakanda is a fictional place in Africa. She's actually Malawian. She's from Malawi. In case I didn't say that right, I apologize. So let's kind of go through this book and talk a little bit more about how it's organized and what you can expect to find inside. First of all, one of the first things that I noticed upon opening it is that it's organized by dietary restriction. So I thought that was awesome because I told you I didn't know anything about this cookbook when I bought it. And I initially, as soon as I opened it, there was this sinking feeling in the bottom of my stomach because I am a pescatarian, although I consider myself more vegetarian because the amount of fish I eat is very, very small. It may be once every few months I may have some salmon, but other than that, I don't eat a lot of fish. And so I was just wondering, I bought this is going to end up sitting on my shelf. So I thought it's going to be like a dust collector or a collector's item. I'm not going to be able to use it because it's probably chock full of meat, and that could not be further from the case. When you open it up on the 13th page, there is a whole list of dietary considerations. They have it if you are vegetarian or vegan. They have the recipe listed and it's marked with a V. They also have non-dairy. If you're just, maybe you eat meat, you don't drink milk, or you have a milk allergy, you're considered. And they also have whether or not the recipe is gluten-free. And there are a ton of gluten-free recipes in here, a lot more than you would think. And also there are just a lot of vegetarian and vegan options. And so one thing that's very important to note throughout this book is that above every recipe there is a short story or a short reason of why it's included. And that's because if you use your imagination when you're reading this, the person who was writing these stories is someone on the royal court for King T'Challa. Of course, King T'Challa is Black Panther. And so this person is on the royal court. And so there may be a recipe that's not expressly African, or one that you wouldn't consider as being an African dish. And the explanation is so perfect. And this is such kudos to whoever came up with this idea. Is phenomenal because, for example, there's a recipe for granola. And the explanation is basically like King T'Challa, he travels a lot, being a foreign dignitary in other countries and all. And he loved granola, so we brought it back. And so it makes sense as to why it would be included. And I was looking through all of these recipes, and one of the things that kind of made me giggle or made me very intrigued, I'm a big fan of the Dora Milaje, and so I have a couple of shirts about the Dora Milaje. I'm huge. They touched me in Black Panther. And so the Carib energy balls on this page basically say that the Dora Milaje eat them while training, and I thought that was so cute, and it was so endearing. It made the recipe so endearing. And so yeah, I really loved it. And I really love something that I'm very much discovering and loving. What I discover is how you can follow like a culinary trail from traditional African American food all the way back to African food. Something that I think I've mentioned previously on one of the former podcasts is how you have fufu and egusi, and how you eat that with your hands. You pick up the fufu and then use it to kind of scoop this egusi, this stew, up into your hand, and then you eat it. Growing up in the country, you hear a lot about how a lot of old folks or really country people down south where I live, which is northern Florida, would take cornbread, and you take cornbread and you take it with your hands and you dip it in the collard greens, which is, you know, of course, braised and with pot liquor and everything, like a stew, and then you eat it. And I feel like that is such a direct connection to our homeland, and I absolutely love it. And so there's certain things throughout this book to where I was just like, hey, we eat that. We eat it in a different way, but hey, we eat that. And I think that this is such a beautiful introduction to African food. I wouldn't say it's African food 101, because Africa is huge, but it's more like what do you call it, the preliminary courses in college that you take before your main course. I feel like that's what this book is, and I just feel incredibly grateful to learn more about it. But we were on the topic of how this book is organized, and so I talked a little bit more about how this person on the royal court wrote a lot of the recipes in it. The cookbook is divided into several sections. There's kind of there's spices, sauces, and condiments. There's market food, which we would think of as like appetizers, for one. There's breakfast foods, soups and salads, vegetables and sides. There's main dishes. Now, one thing that is disappointing as a vegetarian is that I believe only one item in the main dishes is vegetarian, and that's the stuffed pumpkin with dried fruits and rice. But I think there is a typo here, because I was looking at the savory plantain custard, and another thing that's kind of that I wish they had included is that on this dietary considerations page, I wish it had page numbers, because I found myself looking through recipes here more so than I do on the main menu. And so yes, I'm looking through the recipe for the savory plantain custard, and wow, there are eggs in here, but eggs are vegetarian. So again, I don't know why this isn't on the vegetarian list, unless they didn't consider ovo-lacto vegetarians, which are people who eat both eggs and dairy, which are as vegetarian. So I guess I can understand that, but it's still really interesting. So technically, if you're vegetarian, there are two main dishes that are vegetarian, and there's also a section for desserts and drinks. I find it interesting that you can go through this cookbook and you can create a whole meal with several different courses. You can have your market food maybe as your little appetizers. You can have soups and salads. You can have vegetables and sides, and then your main dish, and then you can finish up with desserts and also have some drinks on the side. And I thought that was phenomenal. I thought that was phenomenal and very well done. And I also love the spices and condiments, because something I think that adds a lot to the meal, but we don't necessarily do, or we'll buy the store-bought version, our sauces. If you're a home cook, that is, you'll buy that version. So yeah, so that we talked about a bit about how the book is organized, the type of sections that you can find in it. Now let's talk about what I actually cooked from the cookbook and how it turned out. Some of the things that I made were the okra fritters, and that is in the market section, the market foods, or the appetizers as we would call it in the West, or your street food. And I made these. That's what it's supposed to look like. And I also made, to kill two birds with one stone, in the book it is shown as being served with the curry aioli, which is of course like a mayonnaise, and I made both of those. Now it was my first time, and I was very excited about this, making an aioli, because we're not huge mayo eaters, so there's no reason to make a mayo, just, you know, store-bought to do for the uses that we use it for, which is usually just to lubricate a sandwich. That sounds disgusting, but to, you know, make a sandwich less dry or something like that. We're not, mayo is never like the focus of a dish, so it's kind of like why go through all the trouble. But I made the aioli, first time making it, and I have to caution you, the first time that I made it, because I had to make it twice, I wasted a lot of oil because I just dumped everything in the food processor together. All my Food Network training, everything that I read about aioli just went out the window while I was trying to make it. And I put the oil in with the eggs, and I was like, crap. As soon as I did it, I was like, why did I do that? And then I made it the second time, and I was able to kind of drizzle that oil down in there, and it was able to emulsify and combine into this aioli. And I thought the curry edition was very, very good. Now there's a brand, Sir Kensington. They make a curry, I forgot what kind of sauce they call it. It's like a go-to sauce, I think is the name of it. They make a curry kind of aioli or mayo in a little squeeze bottle, and I think that the aioli in this book is much better than that curry aioli in the bottle. Even though Sir Kensington is a great brand, you can't match home cooking. You can't match good chef-led or chef-taught, at least through this cookbook, home cooking, and the curry aioli was delicious. Only thing is that it's a lot of aioli. We are not super huge aioli eaters, and we only use it to dip the fritters in. So I'm talking about not even a teaspoon of aioli is being used with each dip. So I had it on my hands to get rid of what seemed to be like 2 huge cups of aioli in this bowl. And so what I tried to do, that was not a bad idea, but I did it wrong, was making a sort of, you know, salad out of it. Like you have potato salad, which I think is a phenomenal idea and great use of it, a pasta salad. You can have a chicken salad, I think would probably be your best bet, or like a mock chicken salad, because I had a total brain fart. I used to go to Earth Fare, RIP Earth Fare, and I used to get this curry chicken salad, curry mock chicken salad, and it had raisins and cashews in it, but it worked beautifully together and it was delicious. Now I had a brain fart, and instead of thinking, oh, I used to have the mock chicken salad with curry dressing, I was thinking, hey, I used to have a macaroni salad for some odd reason. I don't know. That's your brain after kids. Nothing seems to work quite right, and you forget things. And so I made this huge thing of pasta salad. I took one bite. It was like, it's supposed to be chicken. It's supposed to be mock chicken. And I was like, I could have gotten that and it would have been bueno. But I'm talking about, I used probably like a pound of pasta, and that aioli sucked it all up. So I had this huge bowl of curry pasta salad that I made that didn't quite work. So just be mindful. I would have that recipe if you're just a normal person or you don't have a big family. Please have that recipe because it's huge and makes far too much for you to eat in a reasonable amount of time, because it says to only keep it in the fridge for about 5 days. So that was the first recipe, was the curry aioli with the okra fritters. Now I didn't talk about the okra fritters, but my husband hates okra, hates it, and he does not have a very picky palate. And so okra is the one thing that he does not enjoy eating. He'll eat it, but he does not enjoy eating it. And so I told him, I said, hey babe, I'm gonna make this okra fritters. And he was just like, can you make anything else, please? And then so we sat down, we ate, and I let him tell you for himself. This is what he thought. So take a bite, dipping in the aioli.
No, thank you.
That's kind of spicy.
You like it? Make you say Wakanda forever? It's still okra.
Actually, no, I don't taste the okra.
He doesn't like okra.
I don't taste the okra, but it's good. This doesn't taste like mayonnaise either. Oh, like a regular aioli. Something here is spicy. Is there spice in it?
It's probably the aioli I added.
That's what I mean.
Hot curry.
Hot curry. Okay. Okay. Oh, it's good. Good texture. Got a little bit of a crunch, spongy. I like it. It's good.
Okay. So yeah, that's what he thought. My okra hating husband, he enjoyed it. So that is a testament to how good these are, and they were so easy to whip up. Now you just need an egg, some milk for your wet, and then for your dry you need flour and cornmeal and a few seasonings, and you need your okra sliced very thin. And I can't stress this enough, if you don't like okra, you're not a huge okra fan, please slice it thin. And it also ensures that the okra will cook when you fry it, because it's sliced very thin. And then corn kernels, so it's kind of a cross between okra and a corn fritter. And then vegetable oil. Now it calls for a lot of paprika in the batter. Now I use smoked paprika, but I also use smoked salt, which is the only major change that I made from the recipe that's not written in the recipe. The other is that it called for goat milk, which is very interesting, and I want to try it because I'm sure that would add little tangy, little something extra to it. But of course all I had was cow's milk, so that's what I used for the fritter batter. And so it's really easy. You mix up your wet, you mix up your dry, mix it together, add the corn and the okra, and then you fry it in a hot skillet. And of course I use my cast iron baby, and I removed them from the skillet, and then we enjoyed it with the aioli. Now the only thing I would say, it's suggested that you use either the curried aioli or another sauce, or 2 other different types of sauces that I recommend. I don't recommend the aioli because you have a fried heavy fritter, and then you're basically dipping it into more fat. And I was like, I wanted something to break it up, even though there was a lot of lemon and vinegar in the curry aioli. So it did have some acidity, but I was like, I need something to kind of break up this kind of fatty, this fattiness in the dish. And I was like, I need something else, need a little something else. And so next time I'll probably try some of these other sauces, but I'll definitely make those okra fritters again. Super simple to make, not hard at all. Something else that I made from the book at the same time as I was making these okra fritters, sweet potato granola. So I made the sweet potato granola, which is in the breakfast section of the book. And that was because I had pretty much all the ingredients. I think the only thing that I needed that I did not have was pecans, and I also did not have vanilla extract, which didn't make it into the recipe because I always keep vanilla extract, but because I don't bake pretty much at all anymore. I used to bake a lot, and I don't bake as much anymore, so I didn't have any on hand. So it was one large sweet potato, and you roast it, then you mix it with coconut oil and honey, and you blend that together with some spices, some salt and vanilla. And now I had an ordinarily good sweet potato. I know because I roasted two and I ate the second and then used the first to make this granola. And it was a very smooth, silky sweet potato, which if you are a sweet potato aficionado, you know sometimes they can be a little stringy. This one was not stringy. And so the combination between this silky smooth sweet potato that I had and this wonderfully rich coconut oil and these warming spices, not too much at all, they came together, and this puree, I said, was so smooth and velvety. It was delicious. And I was like, okay, I didn't have any vanilla. This is not a deal breaker. I can see how some vanilla flavor might add a little kind of like background sweetness to the dish, but man, this is good by itself. And I was wishing that there was a way I could just use that puree for something else, or something other than granola, like make a custard or a pie out of it. It was just that good. But you know, I was resolved to make this as in the cookbook, and so I added my oats and my pecans, and I put it in the oven to make this granola. Now, one thing that I would say is that the starting puree was so delicious, like wow, hearts in your eyes, show-stopping delicious. The granola, it was very meh because I don't know if maybe I did something wrong. My sweet potato mixture was very, it's wet, and so you add your toasted oats and nuts to it, and I was thinking that it was because it had a lot of coconut oil in there. I thought that it would create kind of almost like a frying effect on the oats, or a crisping effect on the oats, but it's a very soft granola. It's not glazed and crispy. It's very soft, and that's not necessarily what I wanted or what I envisioned. And it was definitely, it almost felt like a waste to make the granola out of that show-stopping puree. And it was still a very good granola recipe, something different. It's very healthy. I think even though it's a lot of oil, there's no added refined sugars, just honey. And I think that it's a very nutritious breakfast. I almost wish that you kind of embrace the wet aspect of it and made like overnight oats, or like a baked oatmeal instead of like a granola. Something that kind of emphasized the silkiness of that puree would have been phenomenal. So that is what I thought about the sweet potato granola. I'm definitely, the only change that I made from the recipe is that I did not have ground ginger, but I did microplane in some fresh, some ginger, because what I do is I take ginger and I peel it and freeze it in a baggie. And so that's easier for me to grate in a dish whenever I need some ginger. And it also keeps the ginger fresh for a really long time. And so I grated some of that frozen ginger into the puree. And I use a lot more because fresh ginger is a lot less potent than ground. And so, that was what I did for the sweet potato granola. Again, it's not a wash. I just think that the use of the delicious puree and the delicious sweet potato and the delicious combination of sweet potato and coconut oil, which I never thought were best buddies, but should absolutely have a buddy cop movie together. They're that phenomenal together. Because we always pair sweet potatoes with butter. From the South, you eat a sweet potato, you roast it, cut it open, butter and brown sugar. But I'm just like, coconut oil, you know what, butter? You might not be the best thing around to pair with a sweet potato, add a little coconut oil. And that together is so delicious. I would say make something else. Use that puree for something else in exact measurements that they tell you to, and yeah, make something else. Try to make something else. And the last thing that I made, I think, hopefully I'm not forgetting anything, is I made the ginger granita, which is listed for some reason. Is listed in the spices, sauces, and condiments section, which is a little odd because you wouldn't think that you would put a granita on top of a dish, but the way that they tell you to eat granita in this book is on top of a sorbet, which I thought was very interesting because we have a restaurant here called Jeremiah's Italian Ice and a couple of other local frozen ice shops, and they all kind of layer it with the ice cream. So I thought that was interesting. Instead of layering this granita or this ice on a creamy kind of dairy forward product, they asked you to put it on a sorbet, which I think would be phenomenal. But the ginger granita, I can see they said that frozen dishes like this are very popular in Africa, of course, because it's hot. And being a Floridian, I kind of get that. And it is an excuse, especially in these modern times, to open the freezer and stick your face in there every 30 minutes to get some relief. And I completely understand that. And yeah, I made that, and I love ginger forward things. There's a recipe here. They used to make a ginger kind of lemonade thing, and I'm saying when you're sick, you get that burn in the back of your throat, and it makes, for some reason, that burn is very therapeutic. It makes you feel like, hey, some help is on the way. You know, if you're from the South, you've been told to drink some ginger ale and lay down when you're sick. And so this ginger granita definitely felt like it wasn't very forward on the ginger. The ginger was this very nice, kind of very light afterburn. So what you do is you take your water and you infuse it with some ginger, and that flavor kind of infuses in this almost a simple syrup that you make with water and sugar on the stove. And then you add in some lemon juice at the end, which I was kind of reading through this and making this very fast and very quickly. And so I was like, oh, you're supposed to add the lemon juice after. Let me hurry up and do it. And I was just like, I see where they're going with this. You know, I tasted the mix and went like, you know what? This might be a lemonade that never makes it in the freezer. You know, it's very good. And so I put it in the freezer in this little Tupperware dish, began stirring it every 30 minutes. And when it came out, I ate the whole thing because I'm probably the only one in my house that would. The whole little bowl of ginger granita myself, and it was such a phenomenal treat, and it didn't feel so guilt making either. You know, it was sugar, but not like a whole lot of sugar. It was extremely refreshing. I actually wish it was a lot hotter than it was when I was enjoying it, but it's definitely something that I will probably be making all summer. And there's actually, I love chai, I love cardamom. And so there's actually a cardamom granita in here too, which is what I originally wanted to try, but I didn't have the cardamom pods. So I have to head out to like an Indian market, which is where I can get it here, and get the actual pods to put in the granita. Something else that I noticed in here is that they expect you would think, because this is technically a comic book or MCU cookbook, that the recipes would be a lot more driven for the guys, and they would do something and it would be a lot of simple dishes like, oh, Wakanda burger or Wakanda fries, or something that you would think is meat and potatoes. And I totally love that they went in such a chef driven, a little bit more complicated or complex flavors and recipes than what they could have made a total dude bro Wakanda cookbook. And one of the things that I noticed though is that if there's equipment or even an ingredient there's not a lot of like, and I've been spoiled, I think, by the food blogs. There's not a lot of like, hey, if you don't have a smoker, use this instead. Or if you don't want to put it on the grill, put it on the broiler instead. There's none of that coddling there or hand holding. If you don't have a smoker, it just says use a smoker. There's no alternative. And so there's a couple of smoked fish recipes, which, you know, I'm pescatarian, sound very intriguing. But because I don't have a smoker, I guess I won't be making them, which is a little disappointing, but, you know, also kind of understandable. And, you know, if the dish won't taste the same, you know, you make it the way they say to make it. So yeah, so that's something very interesting. So I will be continuing to cook through this beautiful Wakanda cookbook. Something else that's phenomenal about this is the pictures. So many times I'm trying to decide, when I'm not making impulse Amazon buy like this was, when I'm really taking my time and trying to decide if this cookbook is worth the money. In the reviews, there's always the subject of pictures. And if a cookbook doesn't have pictures, man, you're almost dead in the water, because everybody's going to complain about the cookbook not having pictures. And these cookbooks have such beautiful, rich photography, and the food looks so good. And then you have the beautiful African inspired prints in the background and fabrics, and it's very colorful, and I love the rich gold fronts on here. Everything just looks kind of rich, but also for it to be like a royal cookbook, everything looks very homey and comfortable and inviting. And reading through this made me want to go to Wakanda and sit at this table and talk to King T'Challa, which I don't know if that would be a possibility if they let peasants sit down with King T'Challa, but it's something I would definitely do. There's a lot of artwork in the book from Black Panther, the comic book arts, and it looks like other apps. Like I absolutely love this picture here, which appears to be Shuri. And I just, man, there's these little photos of Black Panther down here. And I mean, it's just such a wonderful concept to get to know Wakanda and Wakandans and the type of lifestyle that they live through food. And it speaks to me personally, and I hope that it speaks to you too. I don't know if I'll do enough cookbook reviews to merit a rating system, but if I had to rate this based on a few recipes that I made, and also just the overall feel and ease of cooking in this book, I would probably rate it a 4 stars out of 5, or maybe 4.5 stars out of 5. And that's just because I haven't gone through enough cookbooks to see if there's a 5 out there, but this is pretty high on the rankings. And like, I don't want to rate too high and then something comes along and I'm like, this is a definite 5. I have to go back and change it. But this is definitely a 4.5. It's very enjoyable. You can find it, I believe, wherever you find books and cookbooks. Check it out. If you're just a comic book fan, I would get it just to put it on my shelf or as a coffee table book. But trust me, I think you should try some of the recipes because it's very intriguing, very good recipes, especially if you're not familiar with African food. And such an interesting and easy way to kind of dip your toe in the water of one of the most rich continents that we have on this earth. So I definitely urge you to try the Wakanda Cookbook. I don't know when I'll see you guys again. I'll be more regular with posting video during season 2 of my podcast, which will air later this summer of 2022. And so I'm looking forward to seeing you guys in person. And if you have any suggestions about the show, you see something technical that needs to change, you have any ideas for shows, you can always tell me about it either on social media or on my contact page. And eat something delicious this week. And if it's soul changing delicious, tell me on my social media channels. I am the Flaky Foodie on all platforms: Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, TikTok. I am there. Don't post much to TikTok, but I am there and I'm watching. Alrighty, have a great week. Bye.